Most people think the wealthy just earn more. That's not it. I've sat down and studied the actual spending habits of high net worth individuals, people pulling in 150K, 200K, 300K a year. And what surprised me wasn't how much they made, it was how they divided it. There's a specific formula, almost like a silent rule that nobody talks about publicly, that separates the person quietly building generational wealth from the person earning six figures and still wondering where all the money went by the 15th of every month. And once I show you this formula, you're going to see your own financial life completely differently.
My name is Nico, and I spend way too much time thinking about money, specifically why some people seem to do everything right and still end up broke, while others follow a very simple, almost boring framework and end up with millions. If you're new here, this channel is all about the psychology and the math behind personal finance. No fluff, no get-rich-quick nonsense, just the real patterns that actually move the needle. Hit subscribe if you haven't already, because we drop these videos every single week. And honestly, if this one resonates with you, give it a like. It helps more people find it, and I'd really appreciate it.
Now, let's talk about the 15-65-20 rule. And before I tell you what it is, I want to tell you what it isn't. It isn't the 50-30-20 rule you learned in a personal finance class or saw in a budgeting app. That rule, 50% needs, 30% wants, 20% savings, is fine. It's a starting point. But here's the problem with it. It was designed for average people who want to feel a little better about their money. The 15-65-20 rule was not designed for comfort. It was designed for acceleration.
Here's the structure. 15% goes to investing, not saving, investing. 65% goes to actual living costs, housing, food, transportation, utilities, the stuff you genuinely need to function. And 20% goes to the lifestyle buffer, the dinners out, the vacations, the subscriptions, the things that make life enjoyable but are fundamentally discretionary. Now, look at those numbers for a second. Most people hear that and think, okay, that sounds reasonable, but the magic isn't in the percentages themselves. The magic is in the order.
Wealthy people pay themselves first. That 15% investment contribution comes out before anything else, before rent, before groceries, before the Netflix subscription. It is automated, it is invisible, and it is non-negotiable. The remaining 85% is what they budget their lives around. Average people do the opposite. They pay their bills, spend on lifestyle, maybe save what's left, which statistically is almost nothing. According to a 2023 Federal Reserve report, nearly 37% of Americans couldn't cover a $400 emergency with cash. Not $4,000, $400. And that's not because those people are irresponsible. It's because they were never taught to treat investing as a fixed expense, the same way they treat rent.
Here's where it gets interesting. Let's run the brutal math on this. Take someone earning $65,000 a year, pretty close to the US median household income. After taxes, let's say they're bringing home roughly $4,200 a month. Under the 15-65-20 framework, that's $630 a month going directly into investments, $2,730 to cover all living costs, and $840 to lifestyle spending. That's actually pretty generous if you're being intentional. Now, most people will look at $630 a month and say, that's not enough to make a real difference. And that reaction, that's exactly the psychology that keeps people stuck. Here's what $630 a month actually does. If you start at 25, invest $630 every single month into a broad index fund averaging 8% annual returns, a conservative number historically. By age 55, you have roughly $1.1 million. By 60, you're sitting at $1.6 million. Not because you made a lot of money, because you were consistent and you started. If you wait until 35 to start, that same $630 a month gets you to about $570,000 by 60. Half. You lose half your outcome just by waiting 10 years. That is the cost of not implementing this rule in your 20s. That's not a motivational phrase. That's compound interest doing exactly what it's mathematically supposed to do.
And here's the psychology behind why most people never get there. The number one enemy of the 15-65-20 rule isn't low income, it's lifestyle inflation. I've seen it happen to almost everyone I know who got a raise. They earn more, and almost immediately their life gets more expensive. New car, nicer apartment, more frequent vacations. The raise disappears into a more expensive version of the same life, and the investment percentage stays at 0 or close to it. This is not a discipline failure. This is identity. When we earn more, our brain signals that we deserve to live differently. Status is deeply biological. It's tribal. We want our external life to reflect our internal success. And marketers, by the way, know this better than almost anyone. The car dealership isn't selling you a vehicle, they're selling you the reflection you see in your neighbor's eyes when you pull into the driveway.
The wealthy have trained themselves to separate income growth from lifestyle growth. And this is genuinely difficult because culturally we have it completely backwards. We are taught through advertising, through social media, through the aspirational content we consume, that earning more means spending more, that upgrading your life is the reward for working hard. But the actual reward, the one that buys you freedom and time and choices, is the gap between what you earn and what you spend. That gap is called wealth. And the 15-65-20 rule is simply a structured way to protect that gap even as your income grows. Let me give you a real-world scenario. Two people, same job, same starting salary at 27. Person A gets a raise from $65K to $85K and immediately moves into a nicer apartment, $600 more a month, buys a newer car, $400 more a month in payments, starts eating out more, upgrading their wardrobe, taking a slightly better vacation. That $20,000 raise gets absorbed almost immediately. They feel richer, but their investment contribution stays at $200 a month, which is what they were already putting into their 401k just to get the employer match.
Person B gets the same raise. Their rent doesn't move. Their car doesn't change. They automate an increase in their investment contribution. Now they're putting in $1,100 a month instead of $630. They allow themselves one deliberate lifestyle upgrade, a small travel budget, and they bank the rest. 10 years later, at 37, person A has maybe $40,000 invested in a lifestyle that requires $6,500 a month to sustain. Person B has over $200,000 invested in a lifestyle that costs $3,800 a month. One of those people can take real career risks, change jobs, weather a layoff, start something of their own. The other one is trapped in the golden cage, making good money, living a good life, and one unexpected expense away from financial panic. The opportunity cost here is staggering. Every dollar you push into lifestyle inflation before hitting your investment percentage is a dollar that loses its compounding potential. A $600 apartment upgrade at 27 isn't $600 a month. Over 30 years at 8% returns, that $600 invested monthly would have turned into roughly $810,000. You don't feel that cost when you sign the lease. You feel it at 57 when you realize retirement isn't as close as it should be. So here's the practical fix. Before your next pay period, find your current investment rate. Take your monthly contribution, 401k, IRA, brokerage, whatever, divide it by your gross monthly income. If that number isn't at least 15, your single most important financial move is closing that gap. Not paying off low-interest debt faster, not building a larger emergency fund, not finding better deals on groceries. 15%, invested consistently, index funds, automated. That's the engine. Everything else is noise until that engine is running. And here's the thing about your 30s specifically. There's this window, roughly 28 to 38, where most people's income is rising, but their responsibilities haven't fully peaked. Maybe you don't have kids yet. Maybe your mortgage is manageable. Maybe you still have flexibility in how your life is structured. That window is the single most powerful compounding window of your financial life.
What you build in that decade compounds for 30+ years. What you don't build in that decade requires twice the effort to build in your 40s. The wealthy aren't smarter than you. They just figured this out earlier and acted on it before the lifestyle got too heavy to carry. The 15-65-20 rule isn't about deprivation. The 20% lifestyle budget is real. Use it. Enjoy it. Guilt-free. A life with zero pleasure is not sustainable, and it's not the point. The point is the 15% happens first, happens automatically, and is treated with the same seriousness as your rent payment. Because in a very real way, it is. You're paying your future self rent for the life you want to live later. Skip those payments long enough and your future self won't have anywhere good to live. If this video made something click for you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. A friend, a sibling, anyone you know who's earning decent money but still feels financially stuck. And if you want to go deeper on the specific investment vehicles that make the 15% work the hardest, the account order, the asset allocation, the tax strategy, that video is right here. I'll see you there.